Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. Tracy here, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I made this blanket and this scarf and this cowl. Basically I'm going to show you the stitch that I used, the multiples I used, and how to do it. So with the blanket I made this with a yarn from the USA, which is like so it's a 3-weight yarn, but it was quite thick when it worked up. And this is the Lion Brand A Star Is Born Baby Soft, and that's what I used for the blanket. And I just used a blue to give it a very simple UK double, which is a single crochet in the US border, and then just do a V-stitch, a modern V-stitch all the way around the outside in the same colour. So that's all I did with the blanket. So with the scarf I made it with DK weight yarn, and I used this one, which is a King Cowl Glitz in double knitting. It does come up thinner than the previous DK. This one is called Antique Gold, and it's premium acrylic and polyester. It's beautifully soft. So that's what I made the scarf with. And all I did differently with the scarf was on one row at the end I finished on the row with all of the trebles, which are UK trebles, US double crochets, and then I just went all the way around the edge, picking up a UK double or US single all the way along one edge, and I got to the other end and I did the same kind of scallop border there, and then finished off by going all the way down the other side, picking up UK doubles or US single crochets. Then I just slip stitched to the first one, which is all the way back here, and buried my tail. So that is all I did with the scarf. When it came to the cowl, it's more of a neck warmer, a cowl, a snood, whatever you want to call it. I could have done it this way and made a ring, but I chose to just carry on. I wasn't sure what I was going to make, and then in the end I made it a cowl or a snood or an infinity scarf, whatever you want to call it. And I just did a simple mattress stitch join, which I have got on my channel. So that I made with ice yarn in Picasso in the lovely beautiful rainbow colours, and it took one and a little tiny bit to do this, finish this off. So with the blanket I used 3 of these. I didn't really have like a lot left of my third, and I just used a little end of a blue colour. So for this tutorial I'm going to use this beautiful Twist and Shout yarn, which unfortunately has been discontinued from Hobbycraft. I do have a little bit left in my shop. There's a link in the description box to it. But I just want to tell you before I start the tutorial that the scarf, the gold scarf, I did 31 chain. The blanket I did 101 chain, and for the cowl I lost track, hang on a second, I did 31 as well. So that's that was that, because the ice yarn it did come up a little bit wider because that is a 4-weight. Now for my tutorials I used a 5mm crochet hook. I think with this one I used a 4.5 because it is thinner, but you can use whichever yarn you want as long as you make sure you use the corresponding crochet hook. Okay, so I'm going to show you then my method of doing this. It's called the Wheatsheaf stitch, and I start with a foundation half treble. Now that sounds daunting, I know, but it's not. So all we need to do is first of all make a slip knot. You can do that however you normally would. I've left a nice long tail to sew in at the end, and I'm going to chain 2. Okay, now in that first chain I'm going to make a UK foundation half treble or half double in the US. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that very first chain, and I want to make sure that I pick up the 2 loops. It's a bit fiddly with the first one. It can be a little fiddly with all of them, but I'm just going to make sure that I go into the 2 loops. So there's my loop on the hook. I've yarned over and I've gone into the 2 loops. I'm going to pull up my loop, so I've got 3 on my hook. Now I'm not going to finish off my UK half treble or half double in the US because I need to make the foundation, and for that I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to make 1 chain in the very first loop. I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go into that very first chain, and I find it does help to hold on to it, and then I can make sure I've found it and I can go through the 2 loops. I'm going to pull up my loop. Okay, I'm going to do a chain with the first one, and I'm going to hold on to that, yarn over and pull through all 3. I'm going to yarn over, and again in that first chain, which is just there, going through the 2 loops. I did have them then and I lost one. There we are, through the 2 loops. So we'll pull these 2 aside. That's the loop on the hook. That's my yarn over. I've gone into the 2 loops, yarn over and pull up. And again, I'm going to make 1 chain, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is a foundation half treble, and it can look a little fiddly. I've possibly picked the wrong yarn to show you this with, but just persevere. If you've used a plain yarn, it will be so much easier for you. Don't forget, you need the 2 loops every time. Sometimes you get a little bit more than you bargain for, and you get more than 2 loops. Just come out and go back in, making sure you just get the 2 loops. The reason you want the 2 loops is if you just go in one, then this edge will not be straight and nice. It'll be really uneven and, well, very strange. Okay, so again, make the chain. I hold it because it's easier to find, and go through all 3. Go back to the chain that you created. And the reason that I do this with this particular stitch is because you don't want it to pull. Now, I know you can use a larger crochet hook and make your foundation chain with that, but I just find this makes a much nicer edge. It really does. Anyway, what we need to do is multiples of 5 plus 1 more. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now. I'm going to pause the video to make your multiples of 5 plus 1. I'm going to pause it because if I'm counting, then I'm going to put you off. And if you need any more instruction on how to do this, then just go back and watch the start again. Okay, so I have 31. And what I'm going to do now is, there's my first stitch. I've got my, people always ask me while I do that, because as I finish my work, if I turn my work, I feel like my hook is twisting this chain. So I always do that just to put it in the right way. Okay, so I've got 31. Now my first stitch is going to be in this very first stitch here. Now, if you want to, I don't do my chain. I don't bother. But if I do a chain and I pull it right low, so it doesn't get confused with a stitch. Because in my first 2 stitches, I'm just going to make a UK double crochet or single crochet in the US. And in the first 2, 1 in each. I'm going to chain 3. And now I'm going to skip 2. And I'm going to do 3, like 1 in the next 3 UK double crochets or US single crochets. I'm going to chain 3, sorry. And I'm going to skip 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go into the next 3. I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to skip 2, 1, 2, into the next one, and do 3. I'll try and, actually my wool genie didn't want to pull out any yarn then. I will zoom in just a little bit, and hopefully you can see this is lovely sparkly yarn. So I'm going to skip 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to do 3. Chain 3, skip 2, I've got a hair, and do my 3. I'm going to chain 3, I'm going to skip 2, and then in the last 2 stitches, just as we started with 2, we're going to end with 2. Okay, now you can see if we had done a chain, then sometimes this can pull into a curve at this point. You can kind of pull it and work it out, but this has a nice kind of elasticity, which is why I like to start this particular tutorial or this particular stitch with the foundation half treble or foundation treble in the UK. Right, so see what I mean? Now this is facing the wrong way and I've come back on myself. It's just something that I do. Excuse me. For the next round though, we are going to start making those lovely fans. And for the first stitch, we are going to just make a UK double crochet or a single crochet in the US. Don't forget, if you want to make that chain and cinch it down, that's fine. Now in this space that we created with our chain 3, we're going to do 5 UK treble crochets, which are double crochets in the US. So we're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then where we have our 3 stitches from the previous round, we're going to go into the center one and anchor this down with a UK double crochet or a US single. And then we're going to do 5 in the chain space. I forgot I was zoomed in. I hope I didn't go off camera. It's easy to do when you've zoomed in. So there's my 5, and there are my 3 stitches in the center one, the second one in. I'm just going to do my UK double or US single. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to do 5 in my spaces, and I'm going to anchor it into the center of the 3 stitches, and I shall catch up with you once I've done my very last fan at this one here. Okay, so right, I've reached the end. Now, just as we started with 1 US single, UK double, that's what we're going to end with in our very last stitch there. I'm just going to put 1 in there, and we're going to turn the work. Okay, so far so good. Now, this is a 4-row repeat, and it is confusing at first. So if I were you, I would write down in your own plain English, your words, how you want to remember these rounds. Okay, so this one, basically we are making the spaces and the fans, but we're doing them in alternate ways. What do I mean by that? So we're making this one, and then the next row we're going in between, and then the next row we are mirroring that first one. Okay, so this round we are going to do what I call a stack stitch. You can call it a stack double crochet, a stack single crochet, but I'll just call it a stack. So in that very first stitch, I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. yarn over and pull through both of those. Now in this vertical post, I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop and yarn over and pull through both of those. So I've made what I call a stack. Now that is going to get me up to the height of a UK treble or US double, but I don't really like the turning chain, and so that's what I do. And I'm going to chain one. Now with our fan, we want not the first stitch, we want the second, the third and the fourth, and we're going to do a UK double or a US single in those 3 stitches. So just like the first round of our pattern, when we were making our 3 stitches and then we were doing our 3 chain, we are kind of doing that again. So we're going to do 3 chain, and we're going to go into the second, the third and the fourth of our fans. And 3 chain. We're going to do that in every fan all the way to the end. So I will pause the video and catch up with you when I reach the end of the row. Oops, I split my yarn there. Okay, I will catch up with you when I get to the end of the row. Okay, so now I'm at the end of this row. We're going to almost mirror this end. So we want to chain 1, and instead of doing a UK treble or US double in there, I'm going to do a half treble or half double crochet. I find that for some reason, doing a full treble stitch or double stitch is a little bit too much in that very last stitch there. So now I'm going to turn my work again. Now this round, because we've got the space here, we're going to make half of our fan. Now you can make your stack into this first stitch right here, or you can just go straight into the chain space and make a stack. So that's going into this post, and now we're up to the right height. And I'm going to do 2 in this space. Okay, so now we've got our 3. In the center one, we're going to make a UK double or a US single. Now we've got our chain spaces, we're going to put 5, just as we did before. And just as before, in our 3 stitches from the previous round into the center one to anchor that down. Okay, so in every space we're going to make a fan, and then in our 3 stitches from the previous round we're going to anchor that down with a UK double or a US single. Okay, so that's our repeat for this row. I'm going to pause it then, and I will catch up with you when I get to the end of this row. Okay, here we are at the end. I've done my excuse me, my anchor stitch. Now in the chain space that we created from the previous round, I'm going to put 2 stitches, 2 UK trebles or US doubles, and in the very last stitch I'm going to put my last UK treble US double. There we go, and I'm going to turn my work. So now we have done a whole row of our fans in between the fans from the previous row. So now we're going to start repeating these rounds. Okay, so in this first stitch I'm going to, or the first 2 stitches, I'm going to put a UK double, which are single crochets in the US. So that's in the first 2 stitches, chain 3, whoops, and then in the second, third and fourth of our fan, not the first one, but the second, the third, and the fourth. We're just going to put UK doubles or US singles. So that's our repeat. 3 chain, not the first one, but the second, third, and fourth. 3 chain. Going to repeat that all the way until the end of the row. Okay, so I've made it to the end. I'll get my hook tangled up. I've done my 3. So just as we started, we're going to just put a UK double and US single crochet in the last 2 stitches, because we started with 2 and we're going to end with 2. So that's what we're doing now. How do you figure out what row that you're on? That's one thing that I will sort of mention, because when I first started to do this, every now and then watching TV or something, I get a little confused as to which row was you know, my next start of the beginning of the following row. So if it looks flat like this one, if it looks relatively flat, you start with a UK double or a US single in the first stitch, and then you do your 5. I will show you on the next shell round that it looks completely different. And that is how, after a while, obviously, it becomes easy to recognise, but at first, not so much. So now we've got 3, we're going to go into that centre one, anchor that down, and do our fan. If I go ahead of you, just pause it. But likewise, if you're making the blanket, just pause it until you catch up with me. I love this yarn, but when you've got a camera in between, it is easy to split it, but ordinarily it never splits. I think it's just because I'm kind of not crocheting in the usual kind of position that I normally would. I love this stitch. It really does look very effective, and it's not as hard as it looks. Once you get used to how your rows look, you'll easily know which one you're on. And then we go in the centre one. My last fan. And as we started with just 1, again we end with just 1. Okay, so now excuse me, we are making this part. So if you don't look to this row but you look to this row, that's what we are mimicking. So this round we start with the stack, because we need to get up to the right height for our shells and fans. So we're going to do 1 chain because we're making this gap, and we're going to do our 3 UK doubles, US singles in the second, third and fourth of our fan, and now our 3 chain. Okay, I'm going to do that all the way along. Basically making it flat again. Okay, so I'm going to pause it then, and I will catch up with you when I get to the end of the row. Okay, so we're at the end of the row and we're making that space again. Remember, we're creating that, so we do 1 chain, and in our very last stitch, instead of a UK treble crochet or a double crochet in the US, I'm just going to do a half treble, half double. That way it stays the right height. Okay, so now we've got the hole. That tells us that this is the round where we do the half the shell at the start. I'm going to start with a stack, as I don't like the chains, and then 2 in the space, and then in the center of our 3, I'm just going to anchor that down and then do my 5. And so that's nice and simple. After a while, it really does start to sort of tell you what row is next. At first it's a little confusing because there are 4 rows. Okay, so I'm going to pause it then, and I'll catch up with you when we get to the end. Okay, so back at the end, in the space with the 1 chain, we're going to make our 2 stitches, and then in the very last one, we're going to put our last UK treble or US double. So now, this round, we're right up here. So what we've got to do in this particular round, or this particular row, is start with our UK double, US single in the first 2 stitches, and then 3 chain. It does help to take the yarn with you. And then we're going to do our 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So you're basically leveling this off again. And those are the repeat rounds. You're just alternating, making the shells, and then well, 1 round of shells and then the other round in between them. So you've got your first one, then the second one's in between, and that's it. You just carry on. And for, like I said, for the blanket, I finished on this round, here, and then I leveled it off exactly the same, and then just made a simple border. If anybody wants me to do a tutorial specifically for the blanket, I will. Likewise for the scarf, but this basically is just showing you how to do the stitch and the multiples. So remember, if it's a foundation half treble, half double US, then you've got a multiple of 5 plus 1. So it's nice and simple. Once you get used to it, you don't lose your place anymore. It's easy to spot whether you start low or start high up. It's really once you get used to it, it's like everything. Repetition is key. So that's it. That's how you do it. If you've got any questions, then please put them in the comments. If you want me to do a specific tutorial for the blanket or the scarf or whatever, then also just let me know in the description box. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.